And then once I'm composed, once I've taken that beat, then I can go figure out where the Uber stop is or how to book a taxi or whatever. But if you can take that moment for yourself, regardless of whether you're at the airport or any part of your travels, it helps so much because then you're not putting yourself into situations reactively.
When you're reacting to the situation, 9 times out of 10, you will put yourself into an even scarier
Yeah.
situation, or you might make a mistake.
Welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. This is a show presented by Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency. We release new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central and encourage you to batch up that laundry, put away the dishes, plan for the week ahead, or do any other task that might seem daunting while you give our show a listen. You might just be encouraged to call your therapist, connect with this week's guest, or seek out those services you've been considering for a while but haven't made the commitment to yet. If you are in the state of Iowa and are in need of mental or behavioral health counseling, give us a call at 1-800-531-4236. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I'm the president and founder here at Heart and Solutions, Mental Health Counseling and Behavioral Health Counseling in Iowa.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am our Vice President in charge of the Behavioral Health Department. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Our guests today join us from totally different parts of the world, and this is their first time meeting each other. We've got two repeat guests on our show today. We've got Teresa Carnegie, who you will remember from previous episode. Teresa went through this 18-month time period in her life where her life just kind of felt like it was imploding as she went, and as she was able to go through that journey and really come out the other side with more healing mentally, emotionally, physically, with more direction and kind of purpose in the options of her life and where she wanted to go in her life. She uses that now through her writing, through somatic meditation facilitation to help other people who may be going through a similar journey. We've got Geleen Antonio on the show, who you'll also remember from previous episodes. And Geleen is the founder of the Travel Not to Escape platform. We've talked with Geleen so many times about her personal journey as well, working in her job, and then those things that happen to us in life that just are not expected and just shake up the whole thing. It really just brought for me this theme of, what do we do when our world just falls apart, and being able to see other people rebuild that and rebuild those things intentionally and design their lives going forward for themselves and what feels right for themselves. Just very, very inspiring to me. And so I'm so glad to have these two guests on today who have really lived it and are utilizing that in their day-to-day lives to help other people who may be going through similar situations. So welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
Yes. So, Geleen, can you just briefly walk us through kind of give us a recap of how you went from being a neurosurgeon, or not, I'm sorry, not a neurosurgeon, a neuroscientist, and healthcare professional, and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So this was back in 2020 when I was working corporate healthcare consulting and tech, and utilizing more of that scientific background. And I burned out, as many did during the pandemic. It was a reassessment period of what is really meaningful in my life. And if I'm not living it right now, what can I do? Because I don't want to just be stuck. At that point, I was stuck in a studio in isolation, heartbroken and burnt out from my career, and not really knowing what to do, with a lot of space to really think. So I decided very quickly to get rid of everything and just start traveling around the US. And then as I was traveling around the US, I realized that the job, although it allowed for me to be remote at that moment, it was still the same stressful thing, regardless of where I brought that laptop. And so it started to open me up to what other things I could do while I was on the road. And that was 5 years ago. And it's so wild to think about. I've quit that job. I've quit another job in tech. And actually in 2022, I decided I keep doing the same pattern of jumping into a corporate career and then burning myself out of it. What does it look like to actually pursue something and help people through journeys that I myself was going through? And so that's when I started leaning into building a travel community and sharing my journey on social media. And now what I'm doing, actually, it's interesting because I brought in a bit of that background in consulting, but now I'm doing it for people that I align with our missions that are more purposeful for me. And so from the one side, I'm doing healthcare consulting a bit, but more for AI strategy and helping mental health professionals streamline their processes. And at the same time, I'm also connecting mental health professionals to travelers because I realized that there was a gap in the market for travelers actually being able to get the mental health resources and support that they need while they're also going through these big life transitions. And so that's how I ended up going from one extreme to another to finding my own happy balance in the middle. And now I'm in Spain. I said I'm going to be in Morocco next week, and then after that in Bulgaria. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Julie mentioned, that's something we noticed that both you and Teresa have in common is you, Teresa, were also in the corporate field and after life changes, decided to completely move away from that and get more into like writing and journaling. And I know you said you're a somatic meditation facilitator now. Can you kind of talk us through your story and give a refresher of how you kind of switched from the corporate field to the field you're in now?
First of all, I just want to say, when you're going through things, it sucks. And you're like, life is hard and you're struggling and it is awful. And then you have Julie intro you and you're like, wow, I sound amazing. Holy cow. That was like really, really, really nice to hear. I sounded like I had this like story that was amazing instead of, oh, it was awful to live through. You know what I mean? So mine was
It's both.
yeah, yes. It's just really nice to hear other people's words sometimes because you never put your own life into perspective because you live it. And so when somebody else puts it in their words, it's like, oh, that is true. Oh, but it sounds so much better than in my head, you know? But yeah, for me, it was I mean, I was working, 50 hours a week and I was taking two night classes a semester. And it was, oddly enough, it was designing, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, those kind of systems. So there was a lot of like, university level physics. There was a lot of like math that you never wanted to ever use in school, and you had to now do all kinds of formulas, and it was a lot. And I enjoyed it, but all of a sudden, my dad died, and a week later, I was sitting at a red light, and a 90-year-old person couldn't hit the brakes and they drove right into me. And then they rebounded and hit me again because they still hadn't hit the brakes. And that just kind of started, it kind of felt like, as Julie said, my life was imploding because then there was like another act. I think I had three accidents within 14 months. I lost several people to cancer in that 18-month time period, including one of my medical professionals, my other medical professional, my doctor. Suddenly, I went to make an appointment and found out her office was closed because she had cancer. So that was two medical professionals, a friend, my dad. Like it was just a lot of all that. And in between the car accidents, getting injuries from those and concussions and losing people to cancer, I was also getting other injuries because, you're off balance and you fall. And so I had that. And then I also was getting um, it was a very male dominated industry, and we had a new person that took that male dominance quite forcefully, and the bullying and harassment was getting a little out of control in the workplace. And so there was just a whole lot of stuff. And I kept going and going and going and going. And finally, one day I was like, you know what? I mean more to me than I'm showing myself, I mean. And I just walked out. I said, here's my 2 weeks notice. And I did it 2 days before I went on vacation. So, it was like, I'm done and I'm not coming back. And I remember my boss kept thinking I was coming back. And he was like, well, just take some time. I'm like, no, I'm never coming back. And it kind of led to, I started following my intuition because that's what I noticed I hadn't been doing. And my intuition was the one that told me you can't take this for pushing yourself through anymore. You need to start healing. And I would try modality, I would try another modality, and some stuff works, some stuff not as much. And I just kept trying different things to find what would work. And that led me to get better and better and better, and all the different things I was trying. And it allowed me to um, go past what the medical professionals were even saying. They were like, okay, well, this is as good as you're going to get. And I just kept getting better. And because I kept finding outside the box things and that maybe weren't what everybody else would have done, but it worked for me. And, I had more car accidents in there. And that took, even finding new stuff because then the other stuff I was doing wasn't enough. And I kind of took it as it was life's way of showing me I needed different and I needed more and I needed to try things and I needed to get out of we all do that. We get into our own little box of life and we don't notice maybe what else is around, or we don't recognize that that could benefit us because everything's going great. So when suddenly everything's not going great, great, perfect opportunity to start trying anything and everything and meet new people. And my life is very, very different now, and I love it. And it might not be what somebody else might say I had it better before, but my happiness is a million times better now. And that my happiness and my peace is so much more important than some status that somebody else feels I need to have. So, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you were both talking about status and yeah, and how you were able to find things like outside of work that made you both happy. And in both of the cases, I think it started with like traveling and being able to like leave where you were right before you were left. Teresa, you went on vacation, and then Geleen, you started traveling the country. So can you kind of talk about like what that process was like leaving and starting to travel, and why what do you think made you guys take the leap and start to travel and kind of leave where you were?
Oh yeah. So for me, well, I guess transparent share is I had a pandemic relationship that once things started opening up, we realized how different our lives actually were. And while he wanted the life in the suburbs, I wanted to I wanted to travel the world full time. I wanted to be a speaker. It was on my list to do all of these things. And he's like, that sounds great. I will cheer you on, but I can't join that journey with you. And so with that type of ending of a relationship, I think it pushed me further into, okay, well, I had this decision, right? Like I could have had that life if I wanted it, but I didn't want it. And so I have to make that choice now to actually live the life that I keep saying that I want to live. And what better time than now when I am very clearly at a crossroads. And so I actually decided within a week to get rid of everything. But 1 week post, it was kind of funny because it was a 1 week post breakup. And we had checked in a week later. He's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, I'm I'm leaving. Everything is gone. And it was like, wow, that was really fast. I was like, yeah, yeah. And then packed everything up, started in New York where my best friend was, and that's kind of I eased into it in a way, even though like I left everything in a week, but like starting off in the US, seeing people that I knew to just fill myself back up before, getting completely out of my comfort zone by traveling the country and putting myself in other situations. And so I think that like it's like when you know, and you have to make that decision of okay, you could stay where you are, but where is that going to lead you? It's going to lead you in the exact same place, in the exact same pattern that you've already lived. And maybe it wasn't with him, but am I okay with staying in this exact same place, repeating the pattern with someone else? Or do I finally stop? I think I just got tired of telling myself something, but never actually living it. And you keep telling yourself that same lie over and over again before you stop. Like you're almost tired and annoyed of your own words. And you're like, okay, I gotta go. I have to do it now because if I don't, I am just gonna annoy myself even more. So it's now or never. So that was kind of my leap.
That's great. I mean, I mine's a little different in that when I was in my like many years ago, mid 20s, I I kept planning a trip to travel Europe with people, and people kept canceling on me. And then one day I got a card, I think it was a birthday card or a postcard from my childhood friend. We've been friends since we were six. We live in different cities now and everything, but she sent me this card from London, and I found out she'd been living there. And I was like, wait, that's a possibility? And so the very next day, I went to work and I phoned the British Embassy in Canada, where I am, and I found out what I needed to move to London. I was a little luckier because my grandmother was from there, so I got a little better of a visa. But um, I started the process, and within 3 months, I had quit my job, sold all my stuff, put what I wanted to keep in storage, and had a plane ticket. And the night before, I remember the night before, my mom was like, so where are you going to stay when you get there? I'm like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. And she was like, no, no, don't do that. And so yeah, I ended up booking a place. And from there, I got there and I started looking for jobs and I, went from that. So I had a little bit of an experience previously of what travel did for me. And I loved it when it is scary to, as Geleen said, it is scary when you change your entire life like that. But the feeling is amazing when all of a sudden you're like, I am doing what I've always wanted to do, maybe in a different way than I had expected, but this is way better. And so I knew the joy that I was going to get. So when I left my job when I was in the car accidents and everything, and I went on vacation for like, 2 weeks with my cousin to Europe. And I came back, I wasn't working and I was trying to, you're trying to heal, but stuff kept happening to me. And I just felt to I needed a circuit breaker, is how I worded it. And I remember I was on the phone one day with my mom, and an email came in, and it was a sale for a ticket to Australia, and it was like 600 and some dollars return for their summer. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna get it. And that turned out to be US dollars, but Canada wasn't too bad, so it was still like 800 and some dollars return in December, which is the height of their summer. And so I booked it, and I didn't even really plan it, but I booked it for 3 months and I just went. And the thing is, I was lucky because when I lived in Europe, I met a lot of people. And when you live in London, a lot of people in London at the time I was there anyway were from Australia and New Zealand. So I went for 3 months and I very happily visited a whole ton of people. And it started with I asked one person, hey, I'm going to be in your city. You want to go out for dinner or something? Next thing I know, I've got a place to stay and I'm going to a concert my second day in Australia. And it's a band that's apparently like really people love. And, anyway. Um, so I just was like, so a friend of mine said, well, are you telling everybody you're going? I'm like, well, I wasn't going to. Who wants to see me? She's like, just start asking people if they want to meet up. And I'm like, oh, okay. Next thing I know, I've got invites to stay. In 3 months, I spent 3 weeks alone, um, in total. And and that was part of my healing process because I then got to spend time with people who actually wanted to spend time with me and who were so excited to see me. And it really helped my internal dialogue, um, coming out of that toxic situation in the workplace. I came home and I was like way more excited about getting better. And yeah, let's go to physiotherapy. Yeah, this is great. Like there was just so much more. I was done the downward spiral. I had broken that. And I'm not saying everybody needs to go travel the world to get out of that downward spiral, but sometimes just stepping away in some way can really boost your life and change. For Geleen, it was the breakup, and it was like, perfect. I'm now free. I'm going to go do what I want to do, right? Like it's re realizing that you have that possibility and that you can do it and finding a way to make it happen. And it is going to be scary, but how are you going to feel? Like when you get over that fear, how are you going to feel? And I can tell you, you feel a lot better.
Teresa, what you were saying reminds me very much of Jillian's like travel not to escape, like being able to connect people and kind of like a resource for people traveling to like meet other people in those locations that they are. So Jillian, do you want to kind of talk about how you set up that process, kind of that advice you gave them, and then Teresa, like how you went about meeting all these people and kind of building those connections too, to be able to call random people when you get to the city and be like, hey, I'm here. Because I feel like, yeah, that's kind of connected between you two.
It is, yeah. And I think that that's one of the things you realize when you're solo traveling is you are very actually rarely alone. I'm in, again, I mentioned a very small coastal town in Spain that I thought no one would visit me in. I thought I was going to have a month and a half to myself. Two people have visited me from different parts of the world just to come say hi, and it takes a while to get to the city, but people want to see you, and I think that that's the really cool thing about travelers is people will travel to see you as well. So I think that there's so many different ways to meet people. Part of what I'm doing with Travel Not to Escape, first and foremost, it is a media platform. But within that media platform, we focus on connecting travelers to mental health resources and to how to make meaningful connections while you're on the road and having these discussions as well, so that we don't feel so alone as we're going through all of the things that we might be going through in our own personal journeys, because so many people are actually going through very similar things. We're just not talking about it. So creating that space through the media, sharing all of those inspirational stories from other people, but then also connecting them through support group meetups and also just in-person meetups as well, having these conversations. And then some products as well that go along with this to help would be the therapist and coach directory. That's where you can actually find all the resources if you are in need of some support, more technical support. And then the connection library, which is building slowly, but it's how do you make friends when you are in a city by yourself? And there's so many different ways to do that, but you don't know that unless you go. So finding Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, there's like Slack channels, Discord, Reddit, like there's so many different ways. Everyone in this world just wants to connect. But in any given city, they have their own particular set of tools that they use. So that's kind of what I'm been working on is like, how do I centralize this so it's not so much time and effort just to find the one group in the city for the people that you'll want to connect with.
For me, because I knew people, it was a little easier. But the people I met them while taking tours. So when I lived in London, I would go on a day tour or a weekend tour. I also went on a 49-day tour around Europe. So these were people I met on all the different tours. There was also one friend that I knew. We worked together when we were, younger, and she got married and moved to Australia. So this gave me a chance to go visit and see her. But I'm also super chatty. I don't know if that comes across, but I will randomly talk to strangers. And I find that I love doing that because I will always meet somebody that is different than me, and I will always hear a life story that's different than mine, and I will always hear new perspectives that I would never have thought of. And I love that because it allows me to open my mind more. And I mean, one day I have a really nice camera, and I was out taking photos in Melbourne. No, sorry, Sydney. And this I want to say kid, but I don't want to sound derogatory when I say kid. He was this young guy and he was taking pictures and we just started chatting. And I heard his stories about he is like he goes up like in these empty buildings and he's on the roof and he's taking pictures and he's walking the streets and he's taking pictures. And I remember, then we started following on each other on Instagram. That I wasn't all that big on it at the time, but from what I've seen since on his Instagram, he's kind of like growing big. And it was wild. I met this guy when he was so young and just doing it for fun and just to see what he's done. So for me, it's talking to random strangers, but it's also, taking tours. I find tours very fun to do when you're by yourself. It's the almost an easy way to see sights. You've also got your transportation, and you can hear about more than you would have recognized. You would have maybe walked past a building, whereas a tour guide will explain what that building was. So I always find it really good to get a feeling of a place by taking a tour. And then there's always people on tours you can meet and chat with, and or as Jillian said, there's travelers. And I don't mean this in a bad way because we're all different, but some people travel because they vacation. Other people travel because they want to go experience and live and meet and do, all these different things. And there's two different ways, and both are okay. But travelers will talk to each other. Travelers will share their knowledge, their experience, advice, that kind of thing, opinions, so that everybody's learning from that. And that's how another way you will meet. So you're staying in a hostel or a hotel or whatever, and you will meet the other travelers. It's almost like you start standing out and you can recognize them. And it's helpful. And it's something I learned like really early on, that travelers will always give you the best information and
Yeah.
everybody's willing to share, right?
Yeah, and actually, just this year, I've been to 5 different travel conferences. So there are actually like summits, specifically for like digital nomads as well, or like full-time travelers, where, as you mentioned, like we travel and we share tips with each other, tips on how to get remote jobs, on how to use AI to streamline your life, and different like wellness conferences focused on, grounding while you're traveling. So it's really cool because once you step into it, there really is a really tight-knit traveler community.
Another thing that you both mentioned that you had in common is, Jolene, you mentioned you're in Spain right now and you're traveling to Morocco and don't yet know what you're doing or where you're
Yeah.
going. So you're kind of winging it. And Teresa, you mentioned when you first started that your mom was like, well, where are you staying? And you were like, I have no idea. So if somebody's listening and they're like, I want to do this, I want to travel, I have no idea where to get started, I don't know anybody. What advice would you give them on like being able to find those places or connect with people? Or like if they want to just get started and have never traveled before, like what kind of advice would you give them to kind of get started in that?
Yeah, I would say don't do as I do. I- because I have been solo traveling. I've been doing this for like almost 15 years now. And then full time, where this is my life, it's been like 5 years. So I have built a lot of trust in myself, and also just kind of like the knowledge and experience to like not have a place booked in the next 4 days, knowing that I have to leave the country due to visas. So that's don't put yourself in that position. I would say plan ahead, like Teresa's advice that she got from her mom. You do want to, if you've not done this before, I feel like you should test the waters a bit, get comfortable within your own city, maybe, a couple hours away from your city just to, get comfortable with booking something, going there, checking in, getting yourself. I think that one of the biggest accomplishments that I always have is when I get from the airport or the ferry terminal or the train or bus to my actual Airbnb or lodging, like that is always, I congratulate myself, like, whew, did it, didn't die. This is amazing. So you want to start doing some things like that where some practice runs to get comfortable in a place where it's not life or death. And then you can, branch out and then start to, do the things where, yeah, I have to leave in 4 days and have nothing, nothing booked. But it's a gradual. It's not like an immediate thing. In terms of lodging, same things. And in terms of booking, like I stay in a lot of Airbnbs. I like the private space, especially since I'm working while I'm traveling. What I'll do is I will book for like a week with the Airbnb, and then I'll negotiate off of Airbnb. If I like the place and the landlord is nice, then I'll say, hey, I'll pay cash. How long is this available for? I've done that in a lot of different places, and that's worked out really well. Or if not for that location, they actually have maybe another property that they own. That's actually how I ended up here. I have a 2 bedroom, 3 floor Airbnb randomly because I had booked it for a week and they said, we don't have anyone until June 15th. If you want to stay, you can pay cash. It was a lot cheaper than the market rates and it works out the majority of the time when I do it.
So I have a little tiny free book out, and it's called Solo Female Travel. And it's really just sharing that you are more capable than you think you are. Because women in general, with if you're alone, if you're, you pay your bills all on your own. You work, you get yourself everywhere, you do everything for yourself. If you are part of a family, 9 times out of 10, you're looking after your family, maybe other people you're looking after, and you're looking after yourself. So we as women, we're told we're not capable, but we are way more capable than anybody wants us to believe. So that's what I try and express. And then there's the little things like I said, when you're traveling by yourself, go take a tour of the city. Go, hop on, hop offs in on some of the cities, like London has one of them. Best thing ever. Now it's your transportation. You don't have to figure out where you're going. But my number one advice to anybody who's just starting is, like Geleen said, stay near you. I always say stay where it's the same language as you speak. It's close by, so you have that comfort, and you're just, booking yourself, going by yourself. For me, it was going down to the United States, very close for me, same country, a lot of the same things. So it wasn't too far out of my comfort zone. But I was still by myself. And then, you build it up. At this point, I also have enough confidence that when I get to the train station, watching it go away without me, I know I'm going to be okay getting myself to my destination. I'll figure something out. I have that confidence because I've been doing it for so long. But I know when I first got to London, very first time alone, and I got off and I went to the customer service at the airport and I said, what do I do to get here? And I had a piece of paper, because that was back in the days. And they sent me on the train and I got on the train and I remember sitting there going, oh, wow, looking out the windows. Like I was just like, oh, okay, a little heavy breathing there. And then I got off and I went into the underground right away. I think I had to go to customer service. Customer service is always really helpful. If you're on one of these things, they will help you figure things out. If you're new and a little, unsure of yourself, I got on the underground and got out, and I literally stood on the street, looked around at everything, and even the street lights were different, like the stoplights. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I didn't know what to do. And then I was like, okay, first step first, get to the hostel, and it was like I had a paper map that the nice customer service people gave me, and I followed it, and it was so confusing because even the streets are different, like they're not the same as they are here. And it is really just step by step. Do ask for help. It's not a big deal. Ask for help. There are people there to help you. But Yeah, no, yeah, when you're first starting, stay local. Go on a weekend trip, go on a day trip, and give yourself that chance to stretch your, confidence and find yourself in situations you wouldn't normally find yourself in. Because that's the big thing, is you're finding yourself in situations you've never found yourself in before, and you're having to sort it out. So if you can do that in your regular life, that will help you build your confidence to go do it further.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that you do like somatic meditation. And I think that that actually is one of the things that gets me through a lot of these stressful moments that I know will come up whenever you're first taking the leap, is when you land at an airport, for example, and you're like being hassled by 20 different people and you don't know which one's a real taxi driver, which one's going to kidnap you or overcharge you. I actually like to go to the departures area because you have less of those people hassling you. So I'll go to the departures area, connect to the Wi-Fi, go to a cafe, and then like just take a beat and compose myself. I have a checklist. I need to get water, coffee, and a snack, and then cash and a eSIM before I get going. So I do all of those things in my own space and time. Like I try not to book anything to where I have to rush when I'm at the airport. Like I want to use the bathroom, I want to like refresh. And then once I'm composed, once I've taken that beat, then I can go figure out where the Uber stop is or how to book a taxi or whatever. But if you can take that moment for yourself, regardless of whether you're at the airport or any part of your travels, it helps so much because then you're not putting yourself into situations reactively.
That's a very good point, because when you're reacting to the situation, 9 times out of 10, you will put yourself into an even scarier
Yeah.
situation, or you might make a mistake, or you might, like you said, I was in Morocco and I remember getting out of the airport and we were like, and that's what happens. There are a ton of people coming at you
hmm
with taxi things, and you're like,
hmm
now you're negotiating and you're trying to get a good price. And then, it's like you said, how are you sure this is a real taxi?
Yeah.
And so we ended up walking for a little ways and getting to a different place to before we got I was with a friend for that trip to Morocco. And so before we got in a taxi, we walked away
hmm
and then decided, what we were going to do. Because yeah, if you don't have a moment, you're rushing and you're reactive, and you don't need to rush, but it's what the moment you're in. And so as soon as you step back, you're like, hey, deep breath. I don't need to rush. There's no place to go that I need to rush into. There's still going to be more people here trying to get me to get in their taxi. It's not a life or death situation that I need to make a decision right now in the blink of an eye. And it's a very good point. Step back, take a deep breath, and just get yourself sorted out before you make any rash decisions or make any decisions on the fly. Yeah.
So, somatic meditation, I'm not super familiar with that. So, I'd love to hear if you could talk about what that is. And then, Geleen, talking more about like what you're doing now that you guys have both broken away from your corporate roles. So, more about what somatic meditation is and more about, I know you talked about your mental health guide and how people can find and get that information too.
Thank you. Somatic meditation is a huge thing for me because I found when I was in my healing journey, the somatic aspect was what helped me make huge progress. And it's because it's concentrating, was somatic is all about the emotions in your body, because it's not the emotions that are in your head, it's the emotions that you're feeling in your body. And for me, physically, I couldn't get better until I started working through the emotions that were stuck, because every time you get an injury, an emotion sticks there, kind of thing, right? And we don't really talk a lot about that. Somatic meditation is meditation, but it's focusing on your body. So, yeah, you might sit in silence, but it's okay if you fidget. It's okay if your mind is thinking about something. I mean, one of the guided meditations I do is actually gets you to focus on different pieces of your body throughout the meditation. And you usually feel something or notice something that you might not have noticed otherwise, because our lifestyles separate our mind brain connection. and we don't pay attention to what our body is telling us. And then all of a sudden we're sick or we can't move, and we're like, well, came by all of a sudden. No, not really. You just weren't able to hear what your body was telling you. So there's also that the fact that, another one of the meditations is calming your nervous system. So it's flipping you from fight or flight into the what is it, rest and digest. So it's really that's just a really nice way of saying all the different meditations I do and all the things I do about it is focusing on your body. So, that's where you feel your anxiety. That's where you feel your overwhelm. That's where you feel your stress. That's where you feel depression. That's where you feel a lot of it. Your body has the reaction to all of that. And so this brings you into focus on your body, teaches you how to pay attention to what your body is telling you. Getting that connection of the mind body so that you can recognize different signs your body gives you and helps you move forward. Helps you deal with any anxiety you might have, stress, overwhelm, all of that. It makes a lot of a difference. And I do it and I speak well of it because I've done it personally, and it has helped me personally. And that's why I decided to become a facilitator, to help others with it. And it's why I speak. It's the greatest thing. It's not, I mean, there's probably better and for somebody else, but for me, it was the greatest thing.
Yeah, I think what you're doing with somatic meditation, I definitely really appreciate. Through my journey, that was actually the key factor that has allowed me to, I would say, like step into my voice again and actually not be afraid of being seen and start to do the things that were on the list that I always said I would do. But there were so many parts of me that were protective mechanisms from way back when. And it wasn't until I was getting back in touch, using different like modalities of meditation, but the one that was actually most effective was somatic, getting back in touch with my body, and realizing the reason why those parts were protecting and it wasn't broken. It was actually, the story that I had learned over the years, and now I have to redefine it, and it's okay. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Like that's actually the reason why I started my platform, is that there are so many different modalities out there, and each one will help you in different ways, at different seasons of your life. But when you're going through it, you're trying, you're grasping at straws, and you're like, someone help me, and you don't know what you need help with or who is out there that can help you. So that's really the space that I'm trying to curate, is having these, the media, the products, the interviews, all of it is just for the purpose to get this information out there so that the people that are starting these journeys, they don't feel like they're alone and that they've exhausted all of their resources. There's so many out there, and you just have to find the one that works for you. And so yeah, so that's what I'm doing with Travel Not to Escape for the travel side, for the traveler end, and then TNTE, which is Travel Not to Escape, but TNTE Solutions is what the work that I do for the mental health practitioners, because you also need support so that you can connect with all the people that you're wanting to connect with. And if you're boggled down by so much of the admin stuff, then I feel like that's also a barrier to the people that you're wanting to help. And so I realized that I sat in this interesting niche with my past experience and my passion of, oh, I could actually help in a lot of different ways to connect to different parties that really need to connect with each other. How can I do that? Streamline the process on one side and then create the platform on the other side. So that's what I'm doing now with Travel Not to Escape.
Awesome. So if you are listening and are interested in connecting with Geleen or Teresa, we will have all of their websites and info linked in our show notes. But Teresa can be found on Facebook and Instagram at teresa.carnegie. And Instagram is teresa.carnegie_author. And then she also has her wellness workbook on Amazon. And then Geleen's is Travel Not to Escape. So you can find her on travelnottoescape.com, on Instagram and Facebook as well. And then, like she said, her new thing is TNTE Solutions to connect with the mental health side of it also.
I am Teresa Carnegie.
I'm Geleen Antonio, and
I
I
need
need
a
a counselor.
But we're Chrissa Hunt and Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor, and so do you.
Thank you for listening to the You Need a Counselor podcast. We are so grateful that you're here. You can also find and connect with You Need a Counselor on Facebook and Instagram. If you've enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to like, review, or leave a comment, as all of these things help others to find and benefit from the podcast as well. If you're in the state of Iowa and interested in mental health counseling or behavioral health intervention services, give us a call at 800-531-4236.